We are Silicon Valley entrepreneurs on a mission to channel messages of hope from the other side of the veil. Hi, I'm John Thomas, and I welcome you to the 10th episode of the Channeled Messages of Hope podcast. You may be wondering what took us so long to feature the two prominent climate scientists, Charles Keeling and Stephen Schneider, we interviewed through our friend Sam, the gifted psychic medium. After all, the main subjects of the Channeled Messages of Hope book by Carolyn Thomas are global warming and climate change. And you heard us share in previous episodes that the Council of Wise Souls on the other side working behind the scenes on this project thinks these issues are top priority. So here we are at episode 10, and finally, you get to hear two of the most prominent climate scientists of the 20th century share their perspective. Truth is self-evident to them, as it is to all souls on the other side who want to know it. So who better to tell us the truth about the big changes happening to our planet? But there's a new urgency. We want to get the word out that a monument in climate science is under threat of closure. The Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii keeps the longest continuous record of atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. For climate scientists, the observatory is practically a shrine. It's the birthplace of modern climate science, which made huge advancements under Dr. Keeling's leadership at the observatory. The National Medal of Science recipient verified the theories that became the cornerstone of climate science. Namely that the burning of fossil fuels is adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, causing a heat-trapping greenhouse effect as the concentration of those particles rises. Currently the highest it's ever been in Earth's history, and it just keeps rising. So why would anyone want to close down the Hawaii Observatory that's done so much to advance our understanding of the most important issue the planet faces? It's being done under the premise of government efficiency, but it's hard not to see it as a trophy for the people and industries leading the assault against the climate. Like when the Empire took down the Jedi Temple, maybe? Well, think of the planet as our temple, and yeah, that's what it feels like. Since January 2025, blows have rained down from all directions against the cause of saving the environment. Saving the observatory is a key battle, not just symbolically but scientifically, as it provides some of the most valuable data in all of climate science. So we're bringing this episode forward now to do our part to preserve Mr. Keeling's legacy. Stephen Schneider is another climate science heavyweight, known for his scientific models of the atmosphere, climate change, and the effects of global climate change on biological systems. He patiently explained to us not only the science of climate change, but also the dire need to take it seriously. Through Sam, he confirmed the accuracy of those models he created. His mind hasn't changed about it, despite his new perspective on the other side. And he told us why it's so crucially important to understand the seriousness of the situation. Here's a clip of Stephen spelling it out.
What it boils down to is the greenhouse gas emissions. The heat is being trapped in the earth. Therefore, it's combating with nature. Nature has its own way of releasing heat during the night and cooling the earth as well. But these greenhouse gases becoming trapped are creating the warming. They are creating the warming of the oceans and the land. And when you have the water, the oceans becoming warmer, we're getting more hurricane activity. We're getting hurricanes that are enormous. And that alone is catastrophic. There's no way to prepare against these hurricanes that are so large. And that is because of the oceans that are warming from the greenhouse gas emissions. The drought is because of the emissions being trapped in the earth. The drought leads to the wildfires. That is how this all becomes catastrophic. It becomes a world where we are in survival mode constantly.
A world where we are in survival mode constantly doesn't sound good. I'm sure some of you feel that way already, But it's the tip of the iceberg compared to the predictions for where the climate is headed as it warms. Mr. Schneider and Mr. Keeling expressed urgency to get the message out about the increasing likelihood of a runaway climate change scenario. An argument heard in climate change denial circles is that the Earth is actually in a cooling phase, known as the icehouse state, and global temperatures will drop in the coming decades. So then, presumably, we can just keep burning all the fossil fuels we want and dumping all that CO2 into the atmosphere, and everything will miraculously turn out all right. Joe Rogan brought it up on his podcast with Bernie Sanders. But not only is it incorrect, but Mr. Keeling warned that the cycle is likely to change to a hothouse state sometime in the next century. And the best way to prepare is to bring down CO2 levels immediately. Otherwise, when that change hits, the 1-2 punch of sky-high greenhouse gas concentrations and cyclical warming could be a tipping point when the climate spins completely out of whack and billions of people on this planet experience what can only be called a living nightmare. We don't say that to scare you. We say that to get across the seriousness of the situation. Charles said it takes 100 years before the full effects of today's emissions are felt, and the CO2 particles stay around for 1,000 years. These are compelling reasons to warn us of the urgency of this message. Bring down the emissions now. Thankfully, people are getting the message. The media may equivocate about what's happening with our climate and why, but Stevens says we all know what we're seeing with our own eyes, and some of us are experiencing it personally.
I see that the awareness is more out there, shall we say. The awareness is out there, and people are realizing from what they're witnessing, because now it's really reaching them. And, when we were working on this years ago, and there was the evidence that people now are living with, it was much harder to reach people, convince people. Now people are living in this prediction, and they can no longer deny it.
The Paris Agreement on Climate Change is supposed to bring down emissions to meet targets for warming limits to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius in the short run and less than 2 degrees in the long run. These sound like small numbers, but each fraction of a degree increase means greater risks and more dramatic changes to the climate. But the first warming limit is already being surpassed. And in a remarkable demonstration of this bird's-eye view of what's happening on Earth, Mr. Schneider saw it coming in November 2022 when we spoke with him through Sam. It was well before the publication of a study in the journal Nature that confirmed Stevens' prediction in 2025. He says hard truths are staring humanity in the eye, and he owes it to us to say so. Listen to this clip of what he told us.
Well, as a scientist, it's important for me to be honest and to be truthful. As a human, I also have compassion for the state of the climate and the people, but I'm fearful that we won't make it to the 1.5 Celsius in 2030. I feel that we're moving too late on this, and that is something that I feel it's important to say.
With the Paris Agreement not doing what it's supposed to, net global CO2 emissions are going up, not down, and particle concentrations in the atmosphere are rising faster than any time in known history, which means a planet warming fast, and faster than predicted. But there is hope for achieving the long-run goal of net zero emissions in order to limit warming to under 2 degrees Celsius.
I still feel we can meet that goal. It's going to be tight, though, Carolyn. I have to tell you, I'm an optimist, but I'm also a scientist. But I feel that we can do it, but it's going to be very tight. We will do what we need to do, but I don't know if we're going to meet the timeline goal.
The climate scientists on the other side told us that the consequences for missing the emissions targets are worse than most of us can imagine. But doom and gloom about it only makes things worse. There is a chance, even a likelihood, of success in the long run, and we'll take it. People are pessimistic these days, and yeah, pretty much everything in the news is not good for our cause. The other side is asking us to have hope. They are working on this problem. In fact, Stephen told us there is a working group of climate scientists on the other side who continue their work with each other and use their vantage point to see things that they can then communicate to people on Earth who can do something with the information. In previous episodes, we've shared with you how Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla are helping physicists and inventors through this meeting of the minds. And John Muir and Rachel Carson are helping environmental activists and scientists. They are available as spirit guides to all that ask and are already connected with kindred spirits on Earth. Here's how Stephen said it through Sam.
At this time, there's about 26 of us, which really isn't that many when you think about it. But we're trying to be there with support for those that are still in a body, trying to help them as much as we can. And, if we see something, we try to get their attention.
So it sounds like there is information being communicated from the working group to scientists, researchers, and others here on Earth?
However, it can be communicated. Sometimes scientists will stumble on something and say, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that before? It's because we gave them a nudge. Other times, we're guiding them toward what they need to assess the situation. Just because we are crossed over doesn't mean that we are smarter than those in a physical body, but we can see things from a different perspective. It's almost like you're too close sometimes when you're working on the same thing all the time. And we have a different perspective, and we can have a meeting of the minds. And I think that our collaboration is what leads us to a lot of the information that we come up with, because as a scientist, you're not always working in collaboration, and it's very rewarding to be able to discuss discoveries with other scientists and debate and be introduced to new theories and information. So it's a think tank. To the climate scientists and others out there feeling like a voice crying in the wilderness, Stephen and Charles want you to know you are being heard on the other side, and they've got your back. They are sending ideas and inspirations to people on this side of the veil, including, in Charles's case, to their children. And what might be the tenderest moment in the entire Channeled Messages of Hope book, Charles talks of his ongoing connection with his son, Ralph Keeling, a professor of geochemistry at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography in San Diego. Charles starts off by making a quip about cloning himself in the form of his son. They are that much alike. Then he reveals the contents of a conversation they had when Ralph was a young boy, a conversation only they know about. So Ralph, this clip is for you.
Cloning should be illegal, but I think I cloned someone when I had my son, Ralph. In many ways, it feels like we are the same. My son is quite knowledgeable. He has taken the torch and he is moving forward with new information. He has made incredible advancements in continuing the work. When he was, I believe he was around 4 years old, he expressed to me that he wanted to do this work side by side with me as he grew up. And I told him at the time that it would be an honor to work with him.
Charles also spoke strongly about the need to consider the oceans in the climate picture and do all we can for their health. The oceans absorb carbon from the atmosphere and also heat, and their health is a major part of the picture we tend to overlook because what's happening in them is out of sight for most of us land lovers.
The oceans, what's happening with the acidification is it's a bicarbonate and carbonate mixture eroding the oceans, and it's coming from the emissions in the air. And if we can regenerate the oceans, make the oceans a healthy place, as people living on this earth, we see the surface of the water. We don't relate to what that world is like. And if we can continue to regenerate the oceans and clean them from the acidification, of course that will be a big component of moving forward with improving climate change. That is the big question, is can we save this? Because the life that we have above sea and below sea are very separated. We need to look at this planet with all systems in place to what makes this planet work. And it's not just what's happening on top of the oceans, what's happening on the earth. It's also what's happening below. And if we can continue to work toward renewing the health of the oceans, there is no question that the health of life above the oceans will improve and be better.
The denial of climate change has done what it was created to do, sow enough doubt to obscure the facts behind a smokescreen. Mr. Keeling recalled when President Richard Nixon thought he was telling fairy tales. As White House science advisor, Mr. Keeling warned Mr. Nixon about climate change and was met with sharp skepticism. But eventually, he convinced the president and his people about the reality shown by the science. But it only makes us wonder even more how we've known for 50, 60 years what's up. But emissions just keep climbing, and the people in a position to do something about it just keep denying. It's the classic bury your head in the sand scenario. The Keeling curve in Mr. Schneider's climate models show clearly, and I mean clearly, that global temperatures are rising along with CO2 concentrations. It's not a matter of debate, it's a matter of fact. Mr. Schneider suggests a new approach with the media because the dramatic images of ice caps melting and rainforests burning are no longer getting the public's attention.
I want to say that being a scientist on climate change is not a very popular position. Nobody wants to hear it. And that's why you're seeing a lot of scary images in the media. It's to get attention. And I know that you've been talking about other ways to get attention. And I think that trying to reach out through the media with positive information is definitely something that is a different way to go than we've tried before. And I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see that take place, because the scary images don't seem to be getting the attention we were hoping for.
Good things really are happening in areas that both Stephen and Charles see as ripe with potential. In fact, my colleagues in Silicon Valley looking for startup technologies to back should keep an eye on ocean deacidification, clean energy renewables that are friendly to the environment, and the use of soil to capture carbon. Mr. Keeling said that carbon capture is on the verge of a breakthrough. And in the same comment, He said, "We already have the information we need to understand what's happening with the climate and why. But we need to do something with it." Here's Mr. Keeling.
We are on the verge of making a breakthrough with studying the soil and how the soil can work toward removing some of the CO2 emissions. So that is something that is actually on the verge of a breakthrough there. But at this point, the information is studying us, if you understand what I mean. We have so much information now. We have to act on that. We have to continue to move forward with our progress, with our scientific inventions and breakthroughs and work. We have a lot of information. But the tricky part is what to do with that information to make progress.
The eminent climate scientists mention specific technologies and industries they are keeping an eye on, and you can hear it all in the Channeled Messages of Hope audiobook, which you can acquire at Amazon and Apple and support the podcast and its mission to bring messages of hope from the other side to a world that really needs them. We'll put a link to the book in the show notes. Stephen and Charles say there is no doubt that human-caused warming is driven by carbon dioxide emissions from the burning of fossil fuels. When they crossed over, not only did they bring their knowledge and scientific understanding with them, but from their new vantage point, they have a deeper understanding of how the climate works, how humans are impacting it, and what we can do to avert a climate disaster. Here on Earth, climate scientists rely on models for their assessments and predictions. But Stephen told us that on the other side, he can go to the source. The knowledge and information he wants is available simply by desiring it. No waiting for peer review, no quibbling, just truth and facts.
The thing is, we don't have to use models. And that is an extraordinary gift, to be able to go to the source, to be able to study the earth and not have to use models. I never thought it was possible.
The importance of the Mauna Loa Observatory for climate science and the cause of saving the planet means we all have a stake in protecting it. Back in May of this year, Ralph Keeling co-authored an article where he lays out what's happening. So here's what Ralph had to say, along with Eric Morgan at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. Quote, "There are trillions upon trillions of numbers in the world. We use numbers to describe almost every conceivable thing in the universe. But there is one number that surpasses all others for the enormous impact it will have on every living thing on Earth over the next few thousand years. We consider it so important that we've dedicated our lives to acquiring and understanding it. Today, that number happens to be 427.6. This is a measure of the atmospheric carbon dioxide at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii, in parts per million. It's part of a continuous chain of observations stretching back across 2 generations to 1958, when Dave Keeling recorded the first measurement of 313 parts per million. And by the way, Dave is Charles's middle name, and it's how they referred to him. Dave Keeling maintained this record, known as the Keeling curve, using a running hodgepodge of short-term grants until 2005, at which point geochemist Ralph Keeling assumed its stewardship. But now, after 67 years of battling to keep the program funded and provide the data to other scientists around the world, the program faces its most dire threat ever. The Trump administration has made clear its wishes to gut NOAA's research enterprise, which is at the center of climate research globally. Research guidance from the Office of Management and Budget shows the administration intends to assiduously follow the blueprint of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 and shutter the Ocean and Atmospheric Research Line Office. This is not just a little haircut for a large federal agency. It's grabbing the scissors and stabbing the agency through the heart. Ralph Keeling goes on to say that there is a small group of scientists who are scrambling to preserve the ability to know how much carbon dioxide and other gases are in the atmosphere. Thank you for that, Ralph. I hope that your message gets out. We went to the other side to find out whether global warming really is the threat that people say it is, and that the science backing it really is conclusive and trustworthy. Charles Keeling and Stephen Schneider see it the same now as they did during their lives as eminent climate scientists, except now their view is from the inside out, and they go right to the source. If they say we have reason to hope despite what's happening, I believe them. If you're a fan of the environment and nature, you haven't had much to be happy about lately. The Empire is striking back and flexing its muscle. It's a beast, and it takes from the planet without giving back. Things aren't looking great, but we can do this in the long run. We can greatly reduce emissions. We can restore the oceans. We can heal the planet. Even when we here on Earth are stuck or going backward, the other side's efforts continue unhindered. They are working with us, and that's the best reason for having hope. I'm John Thomas. Thank you for joining us.